The second question will be posed by Scott Wall, and we will be starting with Mr. Grover.
Thank you. Wall Street hits Skid Row was one of the headlines during the economic collapse in our country over the past several weeks. Now, many people are uncomfortable about using hundreds of millions of federal taxpayers' dollars to bail out banks and financial companies whose CEOs had made a tremendous amount of business and personal profits. What is your opinion on this multi-billion-dollar bailout, and how do we prevent it from happening again?
Well, I believe the bailout was wrong, and I applaud Mr. LoBiondo for voting against it, because as you can see, since the bailout was passed, nothing has changed. The stocks go up, they go down, they go up, they go down, they level. It's because this is a global problem. Once we have a global conference on it and we fully understand the depth of the problem and how to correct it, then that's when action should be taken.
Here, Mr. Kurkowski.
Well, my opponent, Mr. LoBiondo, voted against the bailout. I would have voted for it. I would have voted for it 2 times. There were 2 bills that came up, you'll recall. The first was a bill that was not, neither bill was perfect. The first bill did not have the taxpayer safeguards that the second one had. The second one, unfortunately, had some pork barrel funding, earmarks, if you will, that the first one did not have. I think it was very important to make the credit start to flow again in the economy. In fact, credit is to the economy what oil is to your energy.
Thank you. Mr. LoBiondo.
The Wall Street crisis resulted from Wall Street CEOs making some very bad decisions and probably were involved in criminal activity with other people's money. Anytime Congress has tried to do anything really big, really fast, they've screwed it up. Was presented with a $700 billion request that was a blank check to one individual and a handful of his people. Secretary of the Treasury is a former CEO of Goldman Sachs. I don't have any confidence in his ability to distribute that money with folks that he associated with on Wall Street. The bill did not have taxpayer protections. That's a ruse. They're not there. It doesn't have the oversight. It doesn't close the foreign bank loophole. It doesn't do anything about the CEOs that caused the problem. They could have put all of this in the bill.
Thank you. Mr. Stein.
Mr. Kurkowski and myself are in the position of having to prove a negative. What would have happened had that rescue plan not gone through? Listen, I live month to month pretty much, and I'm not in favor of any Wall Street fat cats. I mean, we're picking on, we're the specter of boogeymen here. What would have happened if that bailout wasn't approved and the stock market went down 5,000 points in 2 days? It was a possibility. Mr. LoBiondo had the luxury of knowing that hundreds, and I'm a registered Republican, Mr. Kurkowski is a Democrat. In Washington, over those 2 weeks, hundreds of Republicans and hundreds of Democrats got on board for this rescue plan. No one was peachy keen with it. You know, they would rather have listened to the calls coming into their offices and voted no on that. So Mr. LoBiondo had the luxury. I'd like to know what his position would have been had he been the deciding vote, and the possibility of credit freezing up the next day based on his one vote if that was a possibility. And car dealerships, banks, everyone started going out of business, and we faced a serious depression. But again, in this situation, we're having to prove a negative, and I disagree with Mr. Grover. The stock market pretty much has stabilized over the last few weeks. It could have been much, much worse had we